What's going on, lads and lassies? It's Ocean from the South Stand back again as the transfer window is finally came to an end. What a transfer window for Sunderland. I think probably the greatest in my whole 27 years of being alive. Honestly, I did not expect what we got into this summer, but as per usual, there's so much to get into in this video. Before we go into things, as per usual, this one's brought to you by the southstandclothing.com for all things Sunderland fanwear, hats, t-shirts, mugs, prints, everything Sunderland related. Head to the southstandclothing.com to get ready for the season ahead. Let's get into things. So as I just said in the intro, when we talk about summer transfer windows, never did I think we'd see the day where Sunderland are spending 150 plus million. It must be, I don't even know how much it's at now, well over 160 million maybe. The fact that I'm saying that and Sunderland in the same sentence is crazy. But I think when we get into this, we forget that it all started with Enzo Le Fee. First of all, guys, forgive me if you can see my dog is probably going to huff and puff and gruff in the background, but she can't get comfy. So if you see a little bulldog making noise and getting himself comfy in the background, just ignore it. I've got the bulldog and the staffy, and they both just need attention at all times, so they have to be here when I'm filming. But yeah, here we are. So yeah, I thought today would be fun to just really summarise everything that's happened at the club over the summer window, all the incomings, outgoings, what can we expect, talk a little bit about how I feel about these transfers, whether or not I think they'll make a huge impact in the season ahead. Honestly, so much has happened at the club, it's been hard to keep up with, but for once, summer wasn't just misery and dread, it was full of excitement, and I think what we've already got to see so far from the players who have started in the Premier League already it's just been brilliant. So we'll get right into things, starting with the man who really kicked off our summer signings, Enzo Le Fee. It's hard to forget that he. Can you see her? Look at her. I don't even know. Look at that, man. What am I meant to do with that? She insists on being here, so I have to let her come. But anyway, as I was saying, I think we forget sometimes, where it's easy to forget that the summer transfer window started with Enzo Le Fee. That win at Wembley meant that he was always going to be our man. And honestly, I think one of my favourite videos to come from the summer was that video of Luke when they're lifting the cup asking Enzo if that's him staying. And Enzo just like, yeah, and Luke's fully celebrates. I think that's how we all felt. When he came in last year, of course, joining from Roma into the Championship, that really felt like a big signing at the time. Like it felt monumental for him to join us in the Championship. And it really felt like a little bit of a sign of what was to come. I think we're just not used to that type of pedigree of player, especially to get him on loan in the Championship. But that was the start of the club showing us what they're made of when it comes to signing people. Now that we've got the cash and the profile again, that, yeah, as I said, it just felt like monumental. I think one of my favourite performances from Enzo last year was that game away at the Riverside against Middlesbrough. He just showed his quality, these little sleek touches and slight movements of himself that gets him past players so quickly. There was many a person that watched us in the Championship and would like to say is that he was an average Championship player. But I think anyone who was watching him week in, week out last season seen the potential of Enzo Le Fee in that signing. He just so happened to have to cover a lot of minutes at left wing, and that's just not his natural position. We all know that he's far better in the middle of the field, but regardless of what other Championship fans had to say last season, I think we understood that the injury that he had that took him out for a few weeks had an impact. The fact that he had to play on left wing had an impact, but this was always one that I was excited. I think Enzo playing in a better team with better players in a better league was only going to show actually how good he was, because there's a lot of players that go into the Championship and don't suit it in the sense that it's so rough and so physical like that the technical players like Enzo don't sometimes get the chance to shine. For me, I was always excited about what Enzo was going to look like in the Premier League, and I mean, anyone who watched that game against Brentford at the weekend will see just how important he is going to be to us. He might not have started the first couple games, but there's a reason why Regis Labrie was so set on getting Enzo Le Fee. I think his close ball control and his touch, like sometimes it's genuinely like his foot's covered in glue, the way the ball just sticks to his foot. But yeah, unbelievable what he's been able to show us so far. But I think the best is yet to come with Enzo Le Fee. I think we've got to see more of that quality on the ball, and we're only going to see more of that as the season progresses. And I think what really, when you look back at the summer window and you see that Enzo signing, It always felt like he was going to be the player that we built the squad around. So the fact that we get to talk about, and the fact that we've got 10 plus players who are all of like such a high quality to be able to compete with Enzo, the fact that we're even talking about Enzo not starting in a starting lineup, that just goes to show the difference between Sunderland pre-summer and post-summer, because we've got so many players to talk about on this list that Enzo just really was the start of it. But that truly felt like when the moment that the standards were that really felt like the moment the standards got raised at the club. And you hear players like Luke O'Nien talk about that when Enzo came into the dressing room. It genuinely raised the standards of the whole squad. So the fact that we're now talking about 10 plus players of similar ilk is, yeah, it's incredible. But moving on to Sunderland's record signing fee, Habib Diarra, like, oh, I just keep saying it all the time how gobsmacked I am that this is Sunderland now, but genuinely for the last 8 years, life has been so different. In fact, really the whole time we've never had a Sunderland that looks like this. But let's get straight into Habib Diarra. So he comes from Strasbourg, having been their youngest ever captain. He's pretty much a leader in his own right in that sense, but it's another central midfielder coming in, another box to box midfielder, really looking like the upgrade from Joe Bellingham. So I say upgrade, I hate to sound like I chucked Job under the bus there, but when you're talking about player profiles and what they would bring to Sunderland, Habib is that box to box midfielder who can carry the ball well, who's a great number 10 in terms of where he can see the passes that he can make. That was that replacement, and it's some upgrade as well. I mean, Habib Diarra is impressed. Habib Diarra is impressed all over Europe for a number of years now, and there was plenty of teams looking at him this summer, including Leeds United. This was kind of the start of that funny little spree where everyone Leeds got linked to Sunderland signed. Started off with Habib Diarra, but the Senegalese international is well known to Regis Lebris and Florent Gisolfi, who both would kind of admire them from their times working in France as well. I think it's clear that Sunderland see a lot of potential in him, and that's the reason why they were willing to break their biggest ever transfer record fee. And I think that versatility and what he can bring into midfield, because he does have it all in a way. None of It's going to sound a lot like today that I'm just going to big up every single player that we signed because they're a Sunderland player. Of course, all these players have their flaws as well, but I think we're going to focus more on what they can bring to Sunderland in a positive aspect, because if you've not seen them playing a Sunderland shirt yet, how can I write them off or underestimate them in a sense? Really, a theme across all these transfers is just the fact that I do just put my trust in the club now that these are going to be right. And if they're willing to spend 30 million euros on 30 million quid on a young player, I trust that they see the potential in him as well. And I think all of these players as well, they're not at their ceiling. I say all of the players, all of the young players, they've not reached their ceiling yet. Sunderland are always going to spend on a young player if they know that there's room to develop them, and that's where they see their strength as a club being able to bring out the best in these players. And I think the fact that we've seen such a high level from him, I mean, he scored against England the last time they met as well, so just the fact that he's already playing at such a high level, and yet again, it's one of these players that's coming in like a leader, a captain, just the right mentality as well. I'm excited to see more of him this season. So far, I've been fairly impressed by what he's brought to the team. He's really good at just rushing that box late, being able to link up a little bit with Mayenda and with Talbi over on that right hand side. I think what I want to see more of though is that ball carrying the skills that he's been known to do, especially in that game against Burnley. It felt like a real disconnect. The middle of the park felt huge in terms of being able to progress the ball from back to front. And I'm excited to see more of Habib Diarra's qualities in terms of being able to progress that ball up the field, because we did have that in our midfielders last year, and it seems like we've got that again in the players that we've signed. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of it. If anything that I could say from what I've seen so far, I would just like to see more of him on the ball. Like, it's just Regis seems to be playing a lot through the wingers and bombarding the box that way. We've not really progressed the ball through our middle a lot this year, but that's what I'm looking forward to seeing from Habib Diarra, is just his ability to hold on to the ball and get past his man. So I think we've got a lot more to come from him. Now, speaking of a man who really impressed Sunderland fans in the pre-season, Noah Sadiki, joining from Union Saint Gala. Did I say that right? I'm just going to say Union Saint Gala. Gillois. Gillois. Union Saint Gillois from I give up, man. He joins for £19.5 million, and this is always including add-ons. So when I give you this number, it realistically could be less if bonuses are never met or add-ons are never met. But for now, I'm just going to say £19.5 million. But again, this is a player who comes in, he's a young player, but with a hell of a lot of maturity. It's also a player who comes in again as a leader. I think what you'll notice realistically throughout majority of these signings is these are young players, but with older heads. They're young players who are used to leading their team, young players that are more than happy to be that leadership within the dressing room. I think the fact we're signing so many of them, and really the ultimate leader in Granit Xhaka, which we'll get on to in a bit, but the fact that it's a mentality, it's a certain profile in terms of personality that Sunderland are signing as well, and I think that's impressive. That's what's impressive about a lot of these signings. Is just the mentality that they come in. We're talking about a kid who's another winner yet again. He's won the Belgian Pro League title. He's won the Belgian Cup. He's played in the Champions League played in the Champions League and other European competitions. He really, honest to God, just covers every blade of grass. And from what we've seen from him, he is more than happy to fill in wherever he can see the team needs him to be. Take Saturday's game against Brentford, for example, with Ronaldo covering so much of the pitch further up from a left back position. You just see Sadiki slot on at left back and cover him. He's quite happy to be wherever he needs to be to get the job done. And with that as well, he really, obviously, as I said, he really impressed from his time at Union SG. This came from really breaking through at Anderlecht under Vincent Kompany. But with that, he is in the top 3% of central midfielders in comparable leagues for carries into the final third. He ranked in the top 3% of central midfielders in similar leagues with carries into the final third, and also the top 6% for carries into the penalty area as well. Defensively, he's a monster, recording 7.6 defensive actions per 90, and he's highly ranked for his tackles in advanced areas too. Really just highlighting his work rate and ability, his pressing ability on and off the ball. This guy is just everywhere. And it's really what I think you need in a Premier League game. We've seen it already, been back to the Premier League for the first time in 8 years. This league is fast, it's quick, and you need to be switched on at all times. And Noah Sadiki is someone who's ready to go and go and go. In the first weekend of the Premier League, he was one of the top 5 amounts of ground covered in the opening weekend of the league. Top 5 players for ground covered, and that included him and Xhaka. These are players clocking over 11Ks per match, so definitely working hard. And I think it's clear as well when you see players like Sadiki, you see players like Habib Diarra. Regis is building a team full of just workhorses. The whole squad is like that. They're just ready to run and outrun everyone, which of course it's a long season, but it's a long season. It will see how that goes if they manage to keep it up. But when you look at the difference between the Burnley game and the Brentford game, the biggest difference was intensity, and that comes from having players like Noah Sadiki in the game now. From central midfielders to attackers, it's not the first time that Sunderland would end up dipping into the Belgian leagues for players, with Chemsdine Talbi coming in for £19.5 million in a total package. with Chemsdine Talbi coming in for £19.5 million as a total package with add-ons if they ever met. But much like most of the Chemsdine comes in as a Belgian Pro League winner and a Belgian Cup winner, having won them both in 2023 and 2024. He's known for his explosive pace, his one-on-one dribbling skills, and been amongst Europe's top young wingers for key passes and crosses per 90. The crosses per 90 we've seen already this season. Regis seems to be coming with a game plan of bombarding that box, get it out wide to Chemsdine and Adingra, who we'll talk about later, and bombard the box over and over and over again. Last season really was his true breakout season, featuring in 27 games with 5 goals and 3 assists, and really he put himself on a kind of European stage in that Champions League game against Atalanta, where he scored a double as well. So far from what we've seen, I'm really enjoying his speed and directness, but I'd love to see him just try and take that man on a little bit more, get his head up, take the man on, find the cross. At the minute, he does look a little bit intimidated by the Premier League, in my opinion. It's not to say that the talent's not there or that the ceiling's not high enough. It absolutely could be. But just so far from me, he's looking maybe a little bit scared on the ball and just needs to kind of grow in confidence. That comes from just playing with the people around him, though. growing in the team, settling into the team. Like, we're talking about a guy who's been here for 3 games. I am in certainly no rush to write him off. I just think that out of the players we've spoke about so far, he's probably one that looks probably the rawest out of anyone. Like, he's got a little bit more development left to go, but as I say with anyone, I do trust Sunderland at this point in time, and I think that's the most enjoyable thing, is that I can go, right, cool, he looks a little bit raw, but that doesn't have to be the finished article. Within Sunderland, I believe we've got the coaches and the manager to be able to coach that confidence back into him. I definitely seen on Sunday he's making these little runs that are starting to get found by Hume. They're starting to get found by Habib. So once these runs start paying off and he's able to link up with his fellow players a bit better, I think we'll see the best of Chemsdine Talbi. But he's definitely ready for Sunderland's counter-attacking style of play. He's rapid and he's great on that type of expansive play. So with everything we've got going for us this season and how you'd expect us to play, I think he's going to fit right in tactically. It's just a case of him growing in confidence and seeing the best of him as the season goes on. Now, if there's one player that got the world looking at Sunderland this summer, it was Granit Xhaka. The fact that we can talk about Granit Xhaka wearing the captain's armband for Sunderland still, even though I've seen it 3 games now, still blows me away. Like, this, when we talk about Enzo being a momentum shifter, Xhaka feels like an even bigger momentum shifter. It feels like the next person that just raises the levels. This is a man that Bayer Leverkusen realistically didn't want to let go. Eric Ten Hag spoke in press conferences, even though Eric Ten Hag is now left Bayer Leverkusen, but he spoke in press conferences about how important Xhaka was as a leader, as a person, who he is in the dressing room, and the fact that he was their captain, the fact that he didn't want to let go of them, and yet Sunderland were still able to get someone of his quality, his experience, his leadership, and for the price of £17.5 million with add-ons. That is some of the best work you'll see in a transfer market by a club this summer, and I can't believe it's by a newly promoted Sunderland. Like, that definitely got all eyes on Sunderland when it came to signings. I mean, look, we'll talk about Granit Xhaka, but most people are going to know what he brings. He is a undefeated, invincible title-winning captain with Bayer Leverkusen. He's a DFB Pokal winner. He won a double that season with Leverkusen after leaving Arsenal. Of course, his time at Arsenal was a little bit tumultuous. There was times where he didn't get along with the fans, but that time where he was booed off and he chucked the armband. These things happen, but realistically, by the time that he left Arsenal, he was in a lot better terms. I think it was just right time for him to leave. He's a player that, even though he's getting older, he's now 32, he's not ready to drop his standards. When you talk about people raising the standards of a dressing room, Granit Xhaka is pretty much the epitome of that. He walks in straight away as Sunderland's captain, and I think that goes to show exactly what Sunderland think of him. With Leverkusen not wanting to sell him, it actually took for a Sunderland owner, Kiro Louis-Dreyfus, to call him himself and get that done. And I think when you have an owner like that who's so willing to get involved and so willing to get the job done, I think it would have assured Xhaka quite a lot, and it would assure them that Sunderland are taking this seriously. This isn't a club that's coming to the Premier League hoping to stay up. It's a club that's coming into the Premier League doing everything they possibly can to stay up. And getting someone like Xhaka on board, not only does that tell the world that as well, but it tells other players in the market, like the people that we've managed to sign after Granit Xhaka, that have came because of the relationship they have with him or because they just respect his word so much. It's pretty immeasurable, really. Like, some of the players we'll get on to later on, like Nordi Mukiele and stuff, they wouldn't be here without Granit Xhaka being here, and he just raises the levels and kind of indescribably raises the levels here. We're talking about someone who's a playmaker and a passing master, averaging 92.82 passes attempted per match in the Bundesliga. In the Champions League last year, he finished the campaign with 93.25 pass completion rate, and that's with 583 passes completed. So don't let anyone tell you that he's slowing down. He may play a bit of a different position than they're used to. He's quite happy now to screen the defence, sit as a deep and lying midfield player. At times in Sunderland, especially in that game against Brentford, you've seen him almost slip into a back three between Alderete and between Mukiele as well. But he's more than happy to sit back. That doesn't take away from his ability to progress Sunderland up the field. He can pass, pretty much pick out anyone for a pass at any point in the field. And I think what you've seen more than anything, and it's something that Xhaka gets described as fairly regularly, he is like a conductor on that field. And that is like the perfect way to describe him. when you rewatch both of our home games this year, the two games that we won, at every given moment you can look at Granit Xhaka and he is pointing and telling somewhere, some, tell he is pointing at a player and where to be and telling them what they've got to do, where they've got to be, and his overall understanding of the game is something that Sunderland, his overall understanding of the game is truly just incomparable to any of the other players we've got in that field. And that comes from experience and it comes from years of just working as hard as he has. You're talking about someone who's just incredibly disciplined both on and off the field and who's here to learn. Granit Xhaka is not the kind of guy who's going to come and shy away from a challenge in terms of in the game and just as an overall point when it comes to Sunderland. Just like the other players that I'm talking about, he's a guy he's not afraid to get stuck in this season. He knows the challenge that he's came to. In fact, he kind of hilariously said that he's came to Sunderland to suffer. And I know which way that can be taken and twisted by other fans, but I think we understand what he means. He's someone that wants to get into a coaching career and understands that being at a newly promoted club won't be easy, but he definitely feels confident enough to come in and do it and ensure that it's not going to be just a newly promoted club for long. It's hopefully going to be a club that's a lot bigger than that in the next coming years. I think not only does Xhaka tell others in the game where Sunderland's at and really just raises the level and the profile amongst the players that could possibly come to us, I think in general it just shows where Sunderland believe they're at and how the board and the owners are able to sell this club. They're clearly being spoke about in the footballing community and space as an ambitious project that really does have a high ceiling. It's not just all hit and hope. They clearly good. They clearly do have a good impression in the football place. They clearly do make a good impression in the footballing space, and being able to bring on players like Granit Xhaka just furthers that amongst reputations in the space. So really just feels like a monumental signing for Sunderland, and to get them for the price that they did, I really just, it's hard to really compare that to any other club's signings in a sense. Like there'll be massive we'll see massive transfers this year. Look at Liverpool, the fact that they were able to break the British transfer record signing 2 or 3 times. I don't even know how many qualified for breaking it, but for them to be able to break it 2 or 3 times, they're a great club that are going to get better. But in terms of a newly promoted club, I cannot think of a better signing that's been made. I can't, not this year, not in the previous years. I think when you talk about levels, Granit Xhaka raises them. Just quickly, guys, I know I've been here for 20 minutes talking about Sunderland's signing so far, and I'm not even halfway through it. But if you're enjoying this video today, please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment down below, tell me what you're thinking so far of everything I've had to say about the signings. And you know how it is, you've always got to check out the southstandclothing.com. We've got loads of Sunderland fan wear, t-shirts, hats, mugs ready for the season ahead. It's a place to go to get your mate a birthday present, whatever you may need, anything Sunderland, it's the South Stand. So go and check it out, the southstandclothing.com, and we'll keep cracking on with the summer signings. So moving on to the next player, joining Sunderland on a 5-year deal for a deal worth over £20 million is Simon Adingra from Brighton. Now, anyone that's kind of been paying attention for the last few years in the Premier League will know that Simon had a great couple first years with Brighton, but that actually came after his breakout season at Union Saint-Gilloise, the same team that we spoke about for Noah Sadiki earlier. As I said, we're calling them Union SG from now on because I can't say that name. But unfortunately, these two didn't actually cross paths at the time at Union SG, coming in different seasons. But he did go on to have an exceptional season with them, finishing with 15 goals and 15 assists before making his first appearances at Brighton. So in that first time at Brighton, he did go on to score 6 goals and 31 assists, followed by 2 goals and 2 assists in the next season. So not any sort of astounding numbers by any means, and they're going to pull up any trees. But when you're playing in a team like Brighton with so much competition and someone like Matoma on the wing, who, me personally, I'm a massive fan of Matoma, I can understand where he struggled to get into things. And someone like Hertzler just didn't really have the time for him in the team. It wasn't someone who was in his plans. For Sunderland, though, I think as the same faith I hold with Sunderland with a lot of their signings this summer, I truly believe that he's came to a place that's going to get the best out of him. He may not be the biggest physically, and even by Premier League winger standards, he's not massive. I think he's got a lot going for him in that sense. He's someone who's already won AFCON, so he's clearly shown you that he's got the capabilities to be a threat going forward. And from what we've seen so far, he's direct, tricky, fast in the wing. He's great at putting in crosses as well, which by all signs so far seems to be a lot of Ribery's plans this year. get the ball in the box as quick as possible. Simon Adingra is someone who's going to fit that play really well. So I'm hoping to see more of him coming from this season. If anything, I'd like to just see him take his man on that little bit more and get his head up quicker, just to put the ball in a better position in the box. I said all that. He has already got off the mark with assists, putting the ball on Dan Ballard's head in that first game of the season. So we've seen his crossing ability. I think there's plenty more to come from Simon Adingra. I think it's just going to take Sunderland's coaching to get that highest level out of him. Moving on to defensive capability. Moving on to defensive players. Now, Sunderland, when it came into this season, from goalkeeper and defensive standpoint, really needed some reinforcements. At plenty of times last season, our backline was just decimated by injuries, and it was clear that amongst the questions around who out of the current players could be in the squad, there was also questions about bringing in starters, where we need to reinforce. Just the whole backline just needed some more attention, and I think that was pretty obvious from the moment we ended in that playoff final that was going to be one of the first places we looked at. The coming in from Getafe is Omar Alderete for €10 million. This is a player that's came off the back of being in La Liga's team of the season last year. He's ranked amongst the best centre-backs in Europe's top 5 leagues. I'm going to quickly read off some stats to put that into perspective, just how good he was for Getafe. So in terms of clearances, he's making 7.3 clearances per 90 minutes, which is in the top 4%. Aerial duels is in the top 13% for aerial duels, which is going to complement Dan Ballard's massive heading capabilities as well. Interceptions, he's in the top 33% of interceptions, who is topped by another player that we'll get onto soon. Long passes, he's in the top 4% of people who attempted long passes last season. In terms of passes into the opposition penalty area, he's in the top 12% as well. So this is a centre-back who gets the ball and wants to progress it forward. We've already seen that within 10 minutes of his first Premier League appearance. He'd already got an assist as well, setting up Elijah Mayenda for that first goal against West Ham. So it's clear that we can see he's getting incredible passing range. And again, just to further emphasise that, he was 16th in dribbles as well. So when you're talking about a centre-back, in terms of the Premier League these days, it's all about your capabilities when it comes to playing out from the back. There's been a lot of teams that have came up and had all the ideas when it came to doing that, but didn't have the capabilities of doing it. Bringing in players like this increases Sunderland's chances when it comes to receiving that ball at the back and getting out quickly. That is obviously Sunderland's game plan this year. I think there's going to be a lot of times where we're going to be happy sitting off of the ball in a deep block, but it's about how you get out of that block when you get the ball. How fast can you get to that opposition players? How fast can you get to the opposition's box? Omar Alderete is going to be the type of player that will help you get there and help you get there quickly. Now, one of the most talked about positions for Sunderland this season was goalkeeper. After that playoff final, there was a lot of people who went straight to goalkeeper as one of the positions that we need to reinforce. I think Anthony Patterson showed really throughout the season that he had some weaknesses, even if he did have an incredible playoff final. I think, though, what we're saying here is no slight to Anthony Patterson. He is one of those core players that without him, we wouldn't even be talking about being a Premier League club. He's a type of player who's got us from League One all the way to the Prem, and that's no slight. He is a good goalkeeper, and he is a good goalkeeper for his age especially. But when it comes to the Premier League, there's certain attributions of Pato that just wouldn't have fit. In terms of playing out the back, he's not incredible with his feet. I think when Pato was playing up against a team who was willing to press hard and fast, especially that up high with their strikers, he quite often was a little bit in doubt when it came to playing the ball out from the back. We've seen him fumble with the ball in dangerous positions. In terms of his distribution, there wasn't often that Pato could pick out a player at any point in the pitch and just pass to them. That wasn't his strength. And then you talk about him just in terms of who he is, he's quite a quiet guy. And that kind of shows in the football field as well. With goalkeepers, quite often they're some of the most chatty players in the sense of they're constantly talking to the defenders, giving out instructions, you go here, you go there, yep, perfect. That's not Pato. He's not an incredibly vocal goalkeeper. And when it comes to the Premier League, you need that. You need someone who's willing to command their box, tell players what to do. The type of goalkeeper who's willing to fly out and catch any single high ball that's coming. And that wasn't Pato. We've seen him kind of flounder in his decision making sometimes, not knowing the best time to come for the ball or knowing the best time to stay in his line and just get ready for the shot. He didn't often perform well in those instances. And for all these negative points I'm talking about, Anthony Patterson, the man that have signed Robin Ruus, who came in for £11.5 million, he gets rid of all that. And it's not to say that we're signing the perfect goalkeeper here, but when we talk about Pato's weaknesses, Robin Ruus counteracts that pretty much straight away. Robin Ruus has came in and already impressed this season. In terms of distribution, we've seen him pass along the ground or pick out any man anywhere. He can pick out Enzo Le Fee along the line, any point of the wing, and just passes to him and it sticks to his foot like glue. Robin, you see it in the game against Brentford last week. There was a minute around probably the 20th minute where he just passes by 3 Brentford players straight to Habib Diarra in the semicircle, in the centre circle. And when it comes to goalkeeper distribution, the ability to be able to pass like that and just beat the press like that, it unlocks so many doors for Sunderland. And that was the case whether it was aerial balls or balls across the ground. When it came to commanding his box, Ruus was constantly talking and communicating with all the players around him, and there was not a single high ball that went into that area that I wasn't confident that he would come and collect. Every single one he came and collected with no problems at all. And this is also, bearing in mind, this is a player that's already saved 2 penalties for Sunderland. So the difference in goalkeeper that we've got here, I know that I might be coming across a little bit excited, but genuinely I do believe that Robin Ruus is one of the most important transfers we've made this season so far. He has just changed what Sunderland mean from the goalkeeper. And when you're bringing in defenders of the calibre that we are and the players that we're going to get to talk about, they need someone to be in the goals that they can rely on wholeheartedly. And they need someone who's of that standard, who's confident to tell them what to do, considering the player that these levels, considering the levels that these players have played at. And Robin Ruus, even at a young age, has no problem doing that. So forgive me if I do come across a little bit excited about this transfer, but truly I believe he's going to be one of the most impactful signings that we've made all summer long. Delving deeper into the backline and Sunderland's transfer reinforcements and defence, Arthur Masuaku is joined on a free transfer from Besiktas. Now, he's had a pretty impressive couple seasons over at Besiktas, but that's not his only experience he does have. Of course, he's coming in with over 100 Premier League experiences after playing with West Ham from 2016 to 2023. Now, he came, seems like, by all accounts, by West Ham fans online, he was pretty beloved after his time in London. Nicknamed King Arthur by the West Ham fans, I think what's shown really from Arthur so far in his career is that he offers a hell of a lot going forward for someone who's supposed to be a defender. His defensive capabilities might not always be his strongest points, but what he offers in attack more than makes up for that. He's pretty much an assist machine. He's more than happy to go up and down that line, swinging in balls. He can pick out a lot of players in that final third to help Sunderland get the goals. At 31 years old, I'm not sure he'll be a starter for Sunderland, although in terms of age, he's pretty similar to Ronaldo. It seems like it's going to be Ronaldo's position to lose. I mean, so far he's come in and had a cracking first few games for the club, and he is everywhere. With Masuaku's fitness, and injury record, it's probably going to be someone that's just there for defensive reinforcement, because that has been something that's held him back for a long time, is his ability to stay fit. But for a free transfer and coming in on such a short deal, I really don't think he can complain. He might not make a massive impact this year, but as I said previously, the way that our defence get rearranged time and time again last season due to injury, I think would be silly not to bring in reinforcements like that. Now, moving on to what you can also be described as pretty much a marquee signing for Sunderland, and one that wouldn't happen without the acquisition of Granit Xhaka. Nordi Mukiele joining on a £12 million deal, including add-ons from PSG. Now again, I hate to just keep saying this because it sounds just so dumb and like tin potty, but I cannot believe we have these players at Sunderland. I can't believe it. We're talking about one of Ligue 1's best defenders here, and yes, he found himself out on loan at Leverkusen last year, which is where he grew his relationship with Granit Xhaka, but I quickly got on to reading out some of the stats that really puts it into perspective how Nordi Mukiele compares to some of Ligue 1's best and some of the best defenders that we've seen in the Champions League over the last few years as well. Of course, he joins us at 20 years old as a 2 times Ligue 1 winner, a Coupe de France winner, a 2 times French Super Cup winner, a DFB Pokal winner. This guy is a winner, and that's again something that we spoke about with a lot of these players that are coming into Sunderland this season. A lot of them have experience in winning, and coming into a relegation fight is actually the different part for them. But again, let's talk about some of the stats that make him so impressive compared to his peers in Europe's top 5 leagues. When you think of great modern defenders, you're probably thinking of people like Theo Hernandez, Achraf Hakimi, Jules Koundé, a lot of these French players that are playing over, and he's had experience with playing at PSG as well. So we'll talk about something like tackles per 90. Theo Hernandez, 2.1. Akraf Hakimi, 1.8. And Jules Koundé, 2 tackles per 90. Nordi Mukiele is more than competing with them at 1.93 tackles per 90. Then you move on to something like interceptions per 90 as well. So Jules Koundé, 1.7. Akraf Hakimi, 1.2. Theo Hernandez, 1.5. Nordi Mukiele beats almost all of them at 1.65 interceptions per 90 as well. And then you move on to something like clearances per 90, which in a Sunderland team, which you're going to assume is defending the ball a lot of the time rather than being in possession of it. Jules Koundé, 3.5 clearances per 90. Akraf Hakimi, 2.5 clearances per 90. And Theo Hernandez, 3 clearances per 90. Then you look at Nordi Mukiele's 3.37, and he's beaten again almost all of them there. So comparatively with his peers, he's rating him in the top 10% of defenders in terms of interceptions and his overall play. He's incredible at being able to progress the ball forward, really rating as one of the highest in terms of progressive passes and forward carries for a defender. It really just makes him an invaluable asset when it comes to progressing Sunderland up the field. The football doesn't just make its way magically to the final third. It's got to get there from people. And although he may lack in his aerial abilities, I think we've seen that against Brentford. Realistically, Brentford's goal was really at the fault as his defending. He lost track of his runner, couldn't jump up high enough to clear it. It probably was at his fault. But what he lacks in aerial abilities is really more than made up with by what you would assume would be his centre-back partnerships in Alderete and Ballard anyway. Both of them are more than competent when it comes to their aerial duels and winning them as well. So really, for everything he brings us, I think really on Saturday, to be honest, when I seen him in that Brentford game, I was a little bit starstruck. He's the kind of player where the camera looks at him, and this sounds stupid, but he just looks like a Premier League player. He kind of comes with that swagger and sort of European class that makes you go, who's this guy? I was really impressed by him in that first game. And you can see with all these players, when you watch these games, they seem to be already forming an instant connection with each other and with the club and where we are. Now, moving on to Sunderland's 3 deadline day acquisitions. Really, we didn't really know what to expect coming to that final day. I think, if anything, we would have asked for would have been a centre-back and an attacker as well. And we got that and a little bit more. So, starting off with the Ajax pair, so both these lads making their way over from Ajax this season. We'll start off with Brian Brobbey. So, with him, if you'd asked 3 or 4 days ago, it wouldn't even be him that we'd be talking about. It would be Mark Guiu, but after his loan recall to Chelsea, which really happened for no other reason than Chelsea's injuries meant that they were going to be a little bit short up front this year. So they recalled Guiu before the season even started and gave Sunderland a compensation fee, which then helped with these signings. As I said, it wouldn't be Brian Brobbey we'd be talking about, it would be Mark Guiu. But instead, we're talking about Brian Brobbey, who's now signed in a deal worth up to £25 million. He joins after departing his boyhood club Ajax after making 163 professional appearances. He's already on 56 goals and 24 assists. So not bad considering that he went through a real rough patch last season. He had heaps of personal issues going on off the field, which really did cause a change in form for him at Ajax. But when you look at what he's most known for, his kind of breakthrough seasons in 2023-24 and 24-25. No, sorry. His breakthrough seasons in 22-23 all the way through to the 23-24 season. This is a person who won the Eredivisie title in that 23-24 season. He's someone who was nominated for Eredivisie Player of the Season, nominated for Player of the Month a few times. Again, Sunderland are bringing in a winner again. And in terms of player profile, it does offer something quite a bit different to what Eliza Mayenda and Wilson Isidore bring you. Both of those players, well, in particular, Wilson Isidore, likes to be able to run into a little bit of space, plays off the shoulder of that left-hand side of the centre-back pairings. He's able to run with the ball and get into those spots. And the same as Eliza Mayenda, he likes to play off the shoulders, in between the two centre-halves, grab the ball, turn, shoot. That's Eliza Mayenda. With Brian Brobbey, we are bringing in a slightly different profile in the sense that he has no problem playing with his back to goal. And this is just a personal comparison, but in terms of his physicality and the way that he moves his body, it reminds me of Drogba in that sense. And I'm not comparing him to Drogba. And like, Drogba was one of my favourite strikers ever. I think he was unbelievable. But in terms of his physicality and the way that he can kind of bully defenders in a sense, he brings that to the team. And we're also talking about a guy who's in the top 6% of strikers for expected assists, top 11% for key passes and the top 1% of strikers for pass completion as well. So again, we're talking about someone who wants to bring his other players into play, who can play with his back to field. And I'm wondering if this is maybe going to be one of the guys that we turn to when Regis likes to bring out his two up top tactics. I mean, we've seen that before when he played both Wilson and Mayenda in the same team. And I don't think he'll shy away from that again, especially knowing that we've got someone like Probet who can maybe play in a centre-forward partnership together and is able to bring those other players into play. I think he'll get our strikers, he'll get our wingers a lot more involved in goal contributions as well. And I'd like to see the impact he'll have on someone like Habib Diarra, who likes to rush the box late and find those spaces in the channels. Is that something that Probet can do? Can he bring him into play, get him involved as well, and get his goal numbers up? I think there's lots to come from that signing. And considering the fee they've played for him, they certainly don't see last season as normal for him. They see that couple of years when he was really shining as being a more true reflection of the talent he can bring to this squad. Joining him from Ajax as well on a little bit of a less significant fee, so to say, is Bertrand Traore. Following the deadline day departure of Patrick Roberts on loan to Birmingham City, which, good luck Patrick, fully wish him all the best. We need to remember sometimes when it comes to the slander of Patrick Roberts, we would not be here without him. And I get it, the goal contributions and his contributions in terms of numbers is frustrating, but there's so many Patrick Roberts key passes that literally led us to the Premier League, and we cannot forget that in any sense. But in that one, bringing in Bertrand Traore again offers something different for Sunderland. We're talking about someone who's left-footed, used to playing on the right-hand side, that has no problem really. He could cover forward, he could go left. He is quite competent to play across that front three in any position. And this is someone coming in again with Premier League experience after having played with Villa for a few years. And also he actually came through the Chelsea Academy as well. So it's definitely not his first time in England playing in that sense. I think he offers some much needed competition for Talbi. As I spoke about in the preview for Talbi there, he looks probably one of the most raw out of any player that we brought in. I think he's got an incredibly high ceiling, but he's probably the one that looks maybe the least confident in what he's doing. Maybe looks, as I said, the most raw, like the most incomplete out of all the players we've got. So he offers some much needed competition for that. And I think as well, you're talking about, again, take this with a pinch of salt. Of course, every player joining in a new club is going to say everything the fans want to hear. Oh, I'm excited to be back. I'm this, I'm that. But I think when you talk about Sunderland signings this year, what really stands out to me is the fact that these players see playing in the Premier League as a privilege. They don't think they're given the God-given right to win. They just know they've got to work hard, and they have worked hard to be here. And I think everyone that wants to take that opportunity to play in the Premier League, grab it with both hands and go for it. And I think when you're coming to a club like Sunderland, or any newly promoted club for that matter, mentality is massive. And we're not signing players who are coming in already feeling like they're in a weaker position. Like, we've seen plenty of newly promoted teams rely on the best crop of players from the Championship, but half the time, the players that are the best crop of players from the Championship who have never made their way into the Premier League, a lot of the time they come with this mentality of feeling the weight of the Premier League. They've looked up to it for so long that when they get there, they kind of shit the bed in a sense. These players aren't scared of the challenge of playing the Premier League. They just see it as a massive privilege and understand how hard they've got to keep working to be there. And I think that sort of mentality, especially when almost all the players we've spoken about today are winners in their own right. They've came from the top crop of players in their respective leagues. They've played at the top of their game in their respective leagues. None of them are scared to come and play a Premier League game. They're all ready for that competition. They're ready for that, even if they know they're not starting yet. They understand the squad roles, and I think Sunderland do a great job, and Regis Le Fee in particular does a great job of managing those expectations as well for a lot of new signings. They make sure to make it aware to all those players that he has starting players and he had finishing players, and he wants a chance to develop all of them. So yeah, I think, as I keep saying in this video, a lot of this is about mentality. And that gets us on to this final player as well. So the last player to come in on deadline day is Lucharel Geertruida. Again, that is a name that I am going to butcher and apologise for it, but coming in on a season-long loan from Leipzig. again, this is a player that's not only providing competition for Trey, whom, of course, Trey signed a 5-year contract extension this year, so the club clearly see a long-term future in him. But last season, Trey really never had anyone pushing him for that starting position. And I think, again, we're bringing in someone who's just known for how defensively robust they are, how great a passer of the ball they are. They're known for the defensive solidity. So even if Geertruida doesn't come in and start straight away, which I'm not sure how they feel about that. For me, Trey's not put a foot wrong really this start season so far. Probably didn't shine as much as other players have done, but he's certainly not really put a foot wrong. But the pedigree again that Geertruida comes in with, this is a player that's been followed by a lot of big clubs for a long time. Someone like Arne Slot, Liverpool's manager, has spoke for a while about his admiration for Geertruida after his time at Feyenoord as well. And it's a guy that, even at just 25 years old, has been playing at the top of his game since 2018. So we're talking about a guy that's got 6-7 years experience in professional football as a 25-year-old player. That it just seems like a Sunderland signing. Like, that is a Sunderland signing. So having him on a year's long loan, again, don't really feel it's much to lose for Sunderland at all. Like, I think they were well right to bring him in. If it's not a starting player, it's at the very least very good competition for Trey Hume. So overall, what does this mean for Sunderland? I think, as I showed with that graphic before, Sunderland have done a really good job at building a competitive squad for the Premier League. It's not just about a starting 11. They've managed to take those funds and strengthen in pretty much every position across the board. And really, from what we've seen in these first 3 games, I was kind of surprised at how quickly we've looked like a Premier League team. I'm not going to get ahead of myself and say that Sunderland are safe and that we've got nothing to worry about, because it is a long season with a lot of surprising results, and we're really going to have to, as a club, stick together on that front and just kind of get through it. But I'm surprised at how competent we looked pretty much straight away. Like, especially that opening game against West Ham. Of course, we've seen how West Ham season's going so far. They did manage to get their first win on the board this weekend, but that first game against West Ham, we came out and I was looking at it as like, we just look like we're meant to be here. We look like a Premier League squad. And then we get a little bit of an unstuck game against Burnley, tricky game, and I don't think enough's just said about Burnley just being better in terms of tactics and how they deployed them on that game. They just deserved the points in that sense. And then you see them the game against Brentford, which for me is probably the most real, truest showing of a Premier League match we've had so far. I think, as I said in that video, there's a lot of teams of the Brentford ilk who are going to provide us a very similar experience to what we had playing against them, because they're such a well-organised and generally really just good team, Brentford, that I think that gave us the truest showing of what the Premier League's going to be like. And again, we looked competent and we managed to get the 3 points. So it's not to say Sunderland are going to get the win every week, but I'm surprised at how they're able to assemble a squad that's gelling together so quickly and seems to really be working so far. So I think it'll be a case of course, just seeing how the season goes. I think in terms of the summer spend, we needed to spend that much. That is the price of football these days. And I think a lot spoke about this club spending so much. Sunderland spent nearly 200 mil, but when every single player costs 30, 40 mil, like, what do you actually expect? We were told that we were 24 points behind Leeds and Burnley, so we're going to act like a club that needs to catch up. Is that not normal? For me, I think recruitment have got things right in terms of going for a blend of youth and experience and putting the bigger fees on the youth players who could go for a lot more in the future, and then tapering back in terms of spending but still finding incredible value in the older players. A lot of these defensive players that we've signed, for me, have just been absolute coups. Getting someone like Mukiele for less than 15 million, it's crazy work. And I think that recruitment's really got that blend and the price of things right in that sense. And really, we're buying the best in class in terms of where our budget's at for each player. We're buying the players who they might not always be playing in Europe's top 5 leagues, but whatever league they're in, they're winning it, or they're winning the cup, or they're getting into Champions League spots. They're playing the best in class. Like, so although your Sadikis and your Talbis aren't coming from your La Ligas or Serie A's or the Bundesligas, they're still best in class. And I think what Sunderland are signing this year is more than just a playing profile. It's a personality profile. They're signing mentality monsters that want to be in the league, that are used to winning, and they're not used to winning because it's given to them or it's a right to win. They're used to winning because they know that they work hard enough to win. And I think that's the case with any of these signings. They're not they're not given wins in the Premier League. No one deserves to win in the Premier League just because you've won elsewhere. But these players we've got seem like the kind of players who are going to work for it, and they're going to work not just for survival but to thrive in the Premier League. I don't think any of these players who signed look scared of the challenge of it. And I think that's probably the most important thing of all, because the team that got us from League One to the Premier League was a real core group of players that were young and really just loved each other. If you watch Tony Mowbray's interview with Tony Mowbray on the No Tippy Tappy Football, I think, Sam Allardyce's podcast, go and watch it. I think he was wrongly given the headlines in terms of saying that he doesn't think Sunderland will have the team spin it needed this year. That's not actually what he said. What he just said was, during his time at Sunderland, the most impressive thing as well was how much this group of players loved each other and wanted to play for each other and really cared about each other and the outcome of things. And he was scared that Sunderland would lose that by signing so many players. But it seems to me like the players that we've signed, it seems to be a club thing. Those players loving the club is a symptom of the club being good and the symptom of the club being in a good place. And it seems like Sunderland really take care and really work hard to make sure that the players embed as quickly and as easily as possible, and that they understand the club they've signed for. The club are doing a good job of that. The players we've brought in are doing a good job of that. And the players we've had are like the leaders in that as well. So I think overall the feelings of Sunderland and the general atmosphere at the club is the best I've experienced in my lifetime. As I said, I'm 27 years old and I've followed the club my whole life. And even the last time on the Premier League, it was never this good. We never had this camaraderie and group effort, and like the whole city feels like it's behind it once again. And I think that's the most exciting thing of all. I don't think the club are scared of just survival. They're really just aiming to thrive in the Premier League. And for me, this is the best Sunderland transfer window we've ever had. If it's not, please someone else correct me. But I don't know how they can really nail it much more than they have. Like the impressive signings of we've signed throughout the Sunderland spine, the potential of all these young players, and as well the fees, like the actual business that the club are doing, just seems to be spot on time and time and time again. So I'm not going to complain. I think by now, if you haven't already, put your trust in the club. It's not always going to go right. It's not, and you can't have a head loss every time that we lose a game in the Premier League, because it's no one's right to win in the Premier League. But what more can they do? What more could the club have done to attempt survival than this? I couldn't be happier as a Sunderland fan. What do you think? Please let me know in the comments down below. Really, I want to know all your thoughts on these signings. Have we overpaid, underspent? What have we done? I don't think you can say Sunderland spending more than 170 million in a season is underspending by any measure, but get it down below anyway. Tell me what you think. If you've enjoyed today's video, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.